Hi, everyone. My name is Kean Graham, CEO and founder of MonetizeMore. I'm going to be presenting a webinar that will be followed by question and answer. And before I get is a publisher monetization partner. And if you're interested in a free consultation, you can request that at MonetizeMore.com. So today's webinar is about whether you as a publisher are ready for Ads.txt. And before I get into that, I wanted to reference this quote by Terence Kawaja at Loom & Partners, Ads.txt or die. So this is a very strong statement, but it's because Ads.txt is a very important movement of the ad industry. Advertisers have been asking for it for a while to increase that transparency, and they are going to be expecting it in terms of the publishers that they advertise on, and the ad networks are definitely executing. If you don't implement Ads.txt in the short term, you will slowly see advertisers stop bidding on your ad inventory. So Ads.txt fixes problems that have plagued buyers for years. These problems include domain validity, middleman ad networks, and ad fraud. The first one is domain validity, and this has to do with advertisers needing more transparency within the ad ecosystem. So there's been issues with certain hackers and black hat advertisers that have falsified domains. They valuable domains and replicated them and used the same IDs that were used with those ad networks and tricked the advertisers into thinking they were actually advertising on, for example, Forbes.com. But it was a replicated site, and as a result, it created falsified ad impressions and a lot of loss in value from the advertiser's side. So as a result, because the advertisers have lost trust in the system, they had to bid lower. They needed that transparency, and since they weren't getting it, the bids have been lowered to compensate for this. So the solution for this is Ads.txt, these falsified domains. The transparency is consistent in this case because the publisher can create an Ads.txt file similar to a robots.txt file, and the advertisers can validate this on a manual or automated basis. And the important thing is these hackers or black hat advertisers cannot replicate an Ads.txt file on the root domain. So as a result, after implementing the Ads.txt, advertisers can bid more in terms of their participation rates, and they can bid higher because they don't have to compensate for these falsified ad impressions. The second issue is middlemen that do not have any unique demand, and they pretty much just resell all the demand from other sources, and advertisers prefer to bid directly. These middleman ad networks, they offer little to no value, and they still take a cut. So as a result, the publisher is bids, and this is from, as I said, the ad networks that have little to no value offered. So the solution to this is within Ads.txt, each demand partner is classified as direct or reseller. So publishers can look at these classifications and go for the direct transparency there from the advertiser side and from the publisher side. So publishers can take advantage of this. And on the advertiser side, they can block the resellers because there's no additional value for the advertiser, and it simplifies the ad ecosystem. The third problem is ad fraud. And a good example of this is that was the biggest example. They stole $5 million from advertisers from creating these falsified domains and the subsequent falsified ad impressions. And they were doing this across many different domains, especially some of the most recognizable ones, and the advertisers were fooled. There was more fraud from other that span into the millions of dollars stolen from advertisers, and it was a huge issue in the industry, and still is. The solution to this is Ads.txt validates the actual domain with that file, because as I said, the publisher is able to create it and the hacker / black hat advertiser is not able to replicate this. So the advertiser can rest easy because this is a solution that cannot be broken by the hacker or black hat advertiser. And the advertiser can validate this on an automated basis with their technology, or if they don't have that, then they could do that on a manual basis. It's a nice simplified. In order for you as the publisher to implement Ads.txt, you need to gather the IDs from each ad network. Perhaps you've been receiving emails from some of your ad reps giving the particular IDs and reiterating the urgency of implementing Ads.txt. And then gathering all these ad IDs into a notepad and then uploading it within your root domain. So the info that you need to create this text file is the domain of each ad network, the publisher account ID, the type of relationship, whether it's a direct or reseller, and then you have an optional field of adding a description. So here's an example of Ads.txt on businessinsider.com. As you can see, the first one is from google.com, and it shows the publisher ID. It's a direct account, and then there's the description hashtags. So they are running video, banner ads, native, and app advertisements through that Google account. And you can see similar examples of all their other demand partners below it. The benefits of Ads.txt includes higher bids from advertisers because there's that increased value of transparency, greater advertiser participation rates because if they see that you have an Ads.txt file, then they have less risk of advertising. And there's a higher approval rate from ad networks because it's less risk on their end when they see you are running Ads.txt, and they can rest easy that they're running on a publisher that has less of a chance of any type of falsified ad impressions. And you can sell more private marketplace deals. The advertisers are going to be more willing to advertise directly on your site via programmatic means if they see an Ads.txt file and they know they're going to be getting of all the ad impressions that they bought. This is going to be possibly mandatory by this quarter, and Google has stated they're going to make it mandatory by the end of the month. That you include Google if you're running Google within your ad inventory and all of your demand partners, and make sure to triple check it that there's no issues, because if you make a mistake or you don't include one of your demand partners, they will consider your site an unauthenticated domain and could stop buying within your domain. So you want to make sure it's fully accurate. Also watch out for ad network fraud. We've seen particular ad networks email large publishers to tell them to add them to the Ads.txt file. And these tend to be more sketchy ad networks, and perhaps they're doing this to get onto the file and create falsified ad impressions. So only run ad running on your publisher ad inventory. So within our MonetizeMore portfolio of publishers, we have implemented Ads.txt already, and we consistently update it. So of this publisher portfolio, that adds up to an estimated $72 million in optimized ad revenue exclusively by MonetizeMore. Over 300 million users have seen ads optimized by MonetizeMore, and our premium publishers are so happy with that premium publisher offering that our churn rate is a very low 0.5%. Thanks, everyone. One last thing I wanted to mention is enable WordPress publishers to implement Ads.txt in a much more streamlined fashion. You can create the Ads.txt within an interface, and then once you click submit, it will automatically load it into the root of your domain. And then you can also make changes on the fly, which is really important if you're adding or taking out any ad net. So now is the Q&A portion. So if anyone has any questions, please add it to the text box on the side. Okay, so we have one question here. Many ad networks pay less for the inventory served through DFP. Since they see traffic from Google Ad Services.com, is that because of Ads.txt? I wouldn't completely agree with that ad networks pay less for the inventory served through DFP. Most of them can't even detect this. And from what we've seen with publishers that we actually see much higher rates via DFP. A lot of that has to do with the actual optimization that happens with DFP, but we have not seen this type of thing. And even if this were to be happening, it would not be related to Ads.txt. So we have another question here. Can you run more than one text file in the root? I already have one network with an Ads.txt file. We would not recommend that, and it wouldn't even really work, because say your website was Forbes.com, the text file would be Forbes.com/ads.txt. And when an advertiser or an ad network, that's exactly what they look for. So if you even adjusted it to ads2.txt, they wouldn't even detect it. They wouldn't even look for that. So that would not work. Okay, we have another question here. How can publishers be assured that ad networks will routinely update their demand partner list? So that's a very good question, and perhaps an issue that will come up. It's important that you keep up with your ad network reps and make sure to just to be careful, do spot checks and ask them, okay, has there been any changes? They do have the incentive to update it because it's the ad networks that want to maximize the transparency. They also serve, or perhaps the DSPs that they work with. So they have the incentive to update it. And at the end of the day, it is up to them. But if you want to play it safe, just do maybe quarterly spot checks, send them an email saying, has anything changed with your Ads.txt files? Okay, we have a question here. Do publishers who only run AdSense need Ads.txt? Great question. And this is actually true. AdSense publishers also need Ads.txt. So we were at a Google Think publishing conference just recently, and Google announced that they will be turning off their demand for unauthenticated publishers. Publishers that have Ads.txt files, but don't include their particular Google Publisher ID. So that does not make it urgent for AdSense publishers. However, there are particular advertisers that are opting out of publishers that do not have Ads.txt files. So you will see a slow dropout rate of advertisers bidding on your ad inventory if you do not implement Ads.txt. So we do recommend for you to implement it as soon as possible. And we have a comment here to repeat my news about the WordPress plugin. So we are working on releasing a, and what it's going to do is allow publishers that use the WordPress framework to implement Ads.txt all within an interface. So once you download the plugin, you can select the different ad networks that you use, choose direct or reseller, and then implement the actual ID and any hashtags that you want to add. And then once you added all the different ad networks, you click submit, and it will automatically run within the root of your domain. So if your domain was Forbes.com, it would automatically show up on Forbes.com/ads.txt. And something that's very useful about it is you can make changes on the fly. Networks are going to be changing their different demand sources and IDs, so it's going to require management on your end. So it's better to do it on the fly rather than requiring work from a developer. And something that we offer within MonetizeMore is we make the changes on behalf of the publisher. All right, so we got another question here about publisher ID. Do you mean the DFP network ID or the AdX ID? Okay. So thanks for asking that. I'm going to clarify that. It's the AdX ID, not the DFP network ID. That does not need to be provided. Only demand partners. So if you're running AdX, run that publisher ID. If you're running AdSense, run that publisher ID. If you're running both, then run. We have a question about PubGuru. For the status, it is currently in beta. We are moving our current publisher portfolio into the PubGuru interface, and we are aiming for an end of quarter release for public use. So keep watching out for that. We'll be sending emails about the PubGuru release, and we'll also be sending an email once we're finished the WordPress plugin. So make sure to get on the newsletter. We'll keep you updated. In terms of the date for the plugin, we are aiming to get that by the beginning of December. Guru and prebid.js. So we have particular features that are quite a bit different than prebid.js. So one of them is our multivariate tester. So when a publisher is deciding how many header bid partners they should run within their site that's optimal, that'll maximize their page RPM, and also how many header bid partners to run in total. We have a multivariate tester that tests all the different variations and the number of header bid partners to run, and it measures the actual page RPM that the publisher gets for each variation, and then over time you'll be able to determine which most optimal to run within that particular domain, and all those stats filter into your DFP account so you can see the stats on the fly within a DFP report. Some other features that we have is geo-targeting for each header bid partner, which is really important to minimize extraneous header bid requests. So for example, we know that YieldBot only bids on US traffic. It doesn't make sense to run YieldBot ad requests for all the other countries. It only makes sense to run them for US traffic. Therefore, we only target them for US traffic because we want to maximize that participation rate of the header bid partners. It improves the page load time and also improves the page RPMs. We also have a machine learning system that is optimizing all the different factors that are important. So I mentioned page RPM and page load time. Our machine learning system maximizes page RPM by testing different variations, doing dynamic timeout, and doing various testing that we're becoming more sophisticated at. But at the end of the day, it maximizes the page RPM and minimizes the page load time to ensure strong usability for your audience. Okay. Another question, if I don't have my own Ads.txt account, so that is actually not correct, and it's a little counterintuitive, and we got this directly from Google. So we run a master account of Ad.txt, just for all of you that don't know. And we were instructed by Google to communicate to our Ad.txt publishers to run our publisher ID and state it as direct. So you don't want it as reseller, you want it as direct. And this is for MonetizeMore specifically. And I assume it's the same for all the other partners that offer Ad.txt demand. Okay, we have, does PubGuru work with DFP? It not only is completely compatible with DFP, it's compatible with your DFP. So we've made it so that it's decentralized, you get full transparency, and that you get to own your ad inventory. You get to see everything, you get to keep everything that you're running within DFP. You can run your direct sales, you can run your other third-party ad networks on, say, managed demands, and it all is compatible within your DFP, no matter what currency it is, and yeah, you don't have to run through our centralized DFP. So it's all there for you. Great question. All right, so that looks like that's all the questions. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar. Feel free to contact our support or us directly. All right, thanks everyone.